So we're not going to ask everybody to go around the room and introduce, but we would like to get your perspective. Has everybody hit that QR code there with their phone? So y'all are ready to go. I am going to jump out to what do we have? 3 questions right now. Should be really easy. The first one is, I'm always interested in this one. I mean, we're at a data conference, but Fivetran's not at the scale of Databricks in terms of size and all that kind of thing. How familiar are you with Fivetran? And it's okay to say, yeah, I don't know, this just looked like a cool session to go to. I don't know anything about Fivetran. Yeah, so here we go. A lot of folks heard of it, maybe haven't used it before. A few people that are very familiar, maybe any Fivetran customers in the, okay, yeah, okay, so got something. This side heavily weighted to Fivetran customers. I don't know what's going on. Okay, cool. All right, keep your Menti up. What do you think, CL? Any surprises there so far?
No, it's pretty evenly distributed. Heard of it, but never used it.
Yeah.
About half.
All right, let's go on to our next one. Now, I don't know if you're data leaders within your organization, you're data engineers, application developers. The next question is, have you ever asked your team, or have you ever been asked to build a custom connector? And when I think custom connector, CL, I mean, you're talking design, build, automate, test, deploy, refactor, maintain. It just kind of never ends.
It absolutely never ends.
So let's see where we are. So we've got some folks with experience in here.
Absolutely.
Building custom connectors. I'm going to show you, this is going to be, CL's going to build a custom connector, but it may be a little bit different than what you're thinking. Fivetran has done a pretty good job of solving, for instance, ingesting data into Databricks, all the merging and everything. We do that really well. We've got 1,000 Databricks. Oh, Ramen in the room, I better say this. We got the Databricks Data Integration Partner of the Year this year, which we were really happy about. So yeah, that was a cool award. Really appreciate the Databricks team and all the work that we do together. Okay, so it's kind of a little bit split here. Let's see what we got. Last one. First word that you think of when you think, oh man, somebody just asked me to build a custom pipeline. So this could be, yes, I'm really excited about this. It may be, hello, Claude, are you there today? I don't know what your first words are, but let us know. I'm gonna ask you later on, like, what's your process? How did you do 40 or 50? I like that, yeah. SDK, okay. Yeah, it's tough. When I ask this question, I get everything, oh man, not again, please, keep me out of this thing. Yes, ongoing maintenance is, I think these bubble up the more people vote for them and get a little bit bigger, so cool. All right, thank y'all. Gives us a little sense for in the room, kind of what we have. So thank y'all for that. Anything that's a surprise? See a headache on there?
Maintenance, yeah. I was thinking details, brittle.
What's the first thing, using the Fivetran custom connector SDK, the connector SDK, what's the first word that comes to mind for you?
I think it's multiple words, but I think you only have to worry about the source.
All right.
So maybe left side.
And I ask you, not really that, but I asked you this morning, so you're really having fun building custom connectors.
Yeah.
It's not an eek or oh man, this is terrible. Okay, thank y'all very much. Let's go back. We've got a lot of hands-on time today, but want to set a little bit of the stage. This room seemed pretty weighted over to Fivetran, maybe not as much over here. So I want to give you a little bit of an idea. So automated data movement, scalable, reliable, secure. All the things that you need. I think when I think of Fivetran, what I got asked for all the time was, Kelly, make it simple. Don't make me deal with infrastructure. Give me secure, give me self-serve, all those kind of things. So those can all be framed up technically, but ultimately, we want to help deliver high quality, trusted, usable data into the Databricks Data Intelligence platform each and every time for any source, over and over and over again, to deliver any Databricks data workload. And they are continuing to expand. So see how we talk about every source, every destination, every innovation, anything that stands out to you on this slide. Every is a big word.
Every, yeah, that is a very big word.
How do we go, by the way? We've got, does anybody know Fivetran connectors in our connector library? So I started 3 years ago. We had about 150, 175. Anybody want to, let me see, raise hands. You think we have over 500? Anybody over 500? Okay. Anybody think we have over 600 in our library today that you can just pull out of the box and start using? Okay, we've got a couple of 600. Anybody think we're over 700? Okay, we've got a few of those. We actually are over 700. It's unbelievable. But CL, I know you get asked, you said you built 50 custom. Kelly, CL, what about connector 701, 702, 703? That's what we're going to talk about today. By the way, every destination, you're going to hear a lot, probably heard a lot in the keynote this morning, support for Iceberg, support for Delta, like any Databricks configuration that you want to do within your organization. A lot of our customers have multiple Databricks destinations. We will support that. A lot of cool ways to do it, and certainly any and every Databricks innovation. Talked about this. We're going to go into connector SDK, databases, apps, file systems, event systems, anything that you want there, and some really cool stuff, like I said, with Databricks. I'm going to keep blowing through this because I want to get to your build out. This is important though. So you go, well, okay, what is this connector SDK? We just launched this GA not too long ago.
Yeah, it was a couple months maybe.
Yeah, not very long ago. So we've been working with it for a while internally and with partners and customers. But again, kind of going back to what I talked about, I was doing some things last week and just going through this cycle you have to do to build end to end. The OpenAI, cool quote here on what they're doing with us today. So I want to kind of move quickly through that, but you talk about somebody that probably has everybody used ChatGPT at least once or twice. I don't want to see which, like, don't give me a Claude, let's not have a model war right now. I like the way, by the way, Databricks just put in whatever you want. There's no more model wars. It's just we'll support whatever you have. This is what I want to get to though. This is kind of like the meat of what we're going to talk about. So talked about this design all the way to refactor and maintain. You have to interact with a source, with a connector. I got to interact with Oracle, SQL Server, whatever that source is. I'll call it the middle part, the middle box. I need to orchestrate, maybe I normalize, maybe I'm getting my data types ready to go, because at the end, I've got to interact with Databricks. I got to know how to do Databricks right. And they're very particular about how we integrate with their platform. We have to do it right. CL, we're taking out 2/3 of this custom build process, aren't we?
We absolutely are. We've already done all the optimization of writing to Databricks. We do the table creation on the Databricks side. If there's any changes in the source, we do the alter table statements on the right-hand side. All that's already been taken care of by the Fivetran platform.
So I'm kind of left with, I see a connector.py there. You want to talk about that? Is this kind of the key to the connector SDK?
That is the key.
Right.
So for connector SDK, the first step is installation, standard pip install command, pip install Fivetran connector SDK, and then we'll walk through the connector.py file, which is the one file that you have to have for your custom connector. You can have more. We support multiple Python files if you prefer to have that structure. But connector.py and the update method inside connector.py is the entry point for your custom connector. And we'll show you more detail about that in a minute.
So that little cloud source system via source API, that becomes your kind of the custom piece. And there's just no reason to build the other 2/3 anymore, at least in our opinion. You're causing additional complexity. We're kind of going back to that word cloud, it's a eek and all that kind of stuff, right? All right, so CL, this is the flow today. You want to kind of preview this for us, what you're going to do and how you're going to do it from a data source perspective on into Databricks?
Sure, yeah. So we sort of had a scenario in our minds. You're a restaurant chain and you have 100 locations all throughout the US, and you want to monitor the weather forecast for your location. So you might want to send out a promotion if it's going to be rainy, maybe you get delivery. If it's going to be nice, come and dine on our patio. So we're going to hit the National Weather Service, but since we're a restaurant, we don't have latitude, longitude for all the zip codes where our locations are. So we're going to hit a second API called Zipopotamus to get latitude, longitude for our zip codes that we can then send to National Weather Service, get the weather forecasts, build it in our connector.py. That gets upserted into Fivetran. Fivetran takes care of schema creation, table creation over on the Databricks side.
I'd rather deal with zip codes anytime rather than
lat longs, yeah.
They're a headache for me. I don't like dealing with lat longs. What do you think? Are you
Let's
ready?
do it. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's get over to, we're gonna switch spots here. And by the way, you may have seen us up here. CL's Windows, I'm Mac, and the AV was not liking Windows today. So
Can we zoom in a little bit? I think it might be hard for the folks to read.
Let us know. Yeah, thank you. Let
Yeah.
us know when y'all can see that a little bit better. Let me rearrange here. Let me get down a little bit more. Is that okay for everybody? You want me to go one more?
I think we need to go one more. Yeah.
Another? I can go another. Is that okay for everybody? Okay, let me go full screen here. So scrambled a little bit at the end to do this, but hopefully we should have everything that we need here. CL, do you want to?
Yeah, let's just bring it up to connector.py. All right, great. Thanks.
I can navigate around if you tell me what to do.
All right, so we talked a little bit about sort of the use case that we had in our minds to walk you through.
Weather Advanced.
Weather Advanced,
Yeah.
Great, thank you
So
very much.
CL had her own project set up on her laptop, so bear with us just a little bit.
So a lot of this here on the screen is Python, which you all, if you're in this room, probably good at doing, and if you're not, you have an AI friend that can help you out. So we're not really going to.
Do we have a Java version?
We don't. At this point, we only support Python.
Nothing but Python.
Nothing but Python.
The reason I asked, I had a friend of mine that reached out to me and said, hey, Kelly, I want to build some custom connectors. You have a Java? I'm a Java guy. No, Tim, we got Python though. He's built 3 custom connectors, never done anything in Python before, so Python only.
Python only for now. So the main question that you probably all have in your heads is like, so I'm good at writing Python. I can write a function that talks to this API, that API. What does Fivetran need in order to write the data that I've queried from my source? What does Fivetran need to know to write that into Databricks? So like I mentioned earlier, the first step is pip install Fivetran connector SDK. And then the required imports at the top of your Python code are connector, logging, and operations. So the connector, this supports operations like our update method, our schema method. Updates required, schema is not. Our logging operation, which supports the logging. So we have 4 levels of logging detail based on whether and when you want those to show up. So we have like a fine level logging, which only shows up while you're doing debugging, and then we have info and the higher levels, which will show up in your Fivetran logs, which we'll look at in a little bit. And then finally our operations, which support our data operations, like upsert, update, delete, and checkpoint. So these are the 4 that we support. Upsert is a insert or update based on primary keys. Update will only update and not insert. And then we have delete. If you're working with a source that can tell you something's been deleted, we can mark something deleted in the target in Databricks as long as you just have the key for that record. And then finally checkpoint, which is how we store the state of your connector in between. So we'll go back to the restaurant example. If you have an API that gives you orders, you might want to get all your orders going back to 2024, but then, so that's from 2024 to June 11th, and then you need to save that June 11th. You save that with the checkpoint operation.
I was going to mention on that too, with that checkpoint, maintaining the cursor. All those Fivetran connectors in the connector catalog, 0 CDC build out at all. You do not have to build CDC and incremental sync. That comes automatically with Fivetran. The only selection you make is like, how often I want to go knock on the door of that source and get incremental changes. That's it. Give me 1 minute, give me 5, every 10 minutes, 15, all that. So just want to point that out. CL's going to show that on this as well with custom connector.
Yep, absolutely. So now we'll dig a little bit more into the operations and sort of the flow of the connector. So the required function that you have to have in your connector.py was the update function. So in the update function, we can do things like access the state. So we're going to get configuration, we're going to get state from Fivetran. So we'll talk about the state first. State, like I said, this is where you can store anything you want that you might want to use in your next sync. It could be a timestamp. It could be a list of things that you haven't processed yet. It could be a different timestamp for a variety of sources. It's whatever you need it to be. On the initial sync, it's always empty, so we have coded in here what we want it to be in the case that it's empty. So that's probably going to be like your initial sync start date. So then the next thing we do is we access the configuration. So configuration, what is that? So while you're debugging, it is JSON files. So this is sort of the configurations that you can store in Fivetran after you deploy, but while we're debugging, we can play with these as different JSON files. So I have a debug file, just has a few zip codes, and then I have configuration.json, which has more. But I want my debugs to run fast, so I'm going to have a little file. So we go back to our connector file, and the rest of this is just sort of Python plumbing. We're going to, for every zip code in our list, we're going to try some stuff. We're going to get our coordinates. We're going to get our forecast URL. So right here on line 49 is we have our first upsert operation. So this is where we are sending data to Fivetran to write to our Databricks destination. So we only need two things. We need a table name and we need a dictionary. So we have our metadata dictionary, which is just information about our zip codes. So our table name, where does that come from? So we'll scroll down a little bit more and we get to our schema method. So all we have defined in our schema is table names, primary keys. What you're not seeing and what you don't need to do is define all 10, 20, however many columns that are coming back from your API. So Fivetran, just like with all of our other data connectors, we're going to infer the data types for Databricks based on what you see in the dictionary. So there's really no reason to define all the columns. You can if you want. Like, there's a couple specific use cases where you might want to do that, but it's really not required. And it's one of the great things about the Connector SDK is that it's very flexible. So if your API starts sending new columns, you start using a new feature, those will automatically get created in Databricks. You don't have to change your Connector SDK code in order to do that. So we'll scroll back up to our update function where we're going through these zip codes and we're getting lat logs, we're upserting zip code metadata, go through the forecast, and then we get back a list of forecast periods. So we're getting like a 7-day forecast, like twice a day forecast. So for every forecast period that comes back, we need to do a little extra stuff. We're going to add zip code to that forecast dictionary because the weather service doesn't know zip codes. And then finally, we'll do an upsert.
So
a little bit of login in
breakfast
there.
service and dinner service.
Exactly. There
Okay.
you go. Good way to think about it. Yeah. So we're, again, just going to send a dictionary, forecast dictionary, to a table called forecast. We don't really necessarily even need to know what's in there. Got a little bit of error handling here in case the weather service is not available. And then finally, we do a checkpoint. So what we're basically doing here, and it's maybe not particularly realistic for weather, but this is how you save the timestamp you want to use the next time you sync. So this goes into our cursor dictionary, and then we pass it to the state using checkpoint. So at this point, I think we're ready to debug. So I'm going to go and I'm going to run my Fivetran debug. I'm going to pass in my configuration file. Just like that. All right, so we're seeing our logging. We have refined level logging, which we're definitely not going to need once we deploy. This is just too much, but it just kind of shows you what the connector is doing. So we're seeing the zip code metadata we get back from Zippopotamus, and we're seeing that we have, from weather.gov, we got the forecast URL for the zip code. We have 14 periods back, and we're logging all these forecast periods. And then at the end, we see that we did 75 upserts, 2 schema changes, 1 checkpoint. Great. Okay, so the cool thing about debugging locally is so far we haven't sent anything to Fivetran. We haven't paid any cost for MAR or anything like that. So in our files directory under our project, we now have a new files directory. We have state.json, which is going to be your state that you've stored. So we're going to use this the next time we sync. We also have, and this is the cool part, is warehouse.db. So this is a DuckDB file that you can open in a tool like dbeaver.
Yes, which I do have.
Okay, yeah. Do you already have it set up?
I wasn't planning
Okay,
on, but
all right.
I can get it up pretty quickly if you'd like to test it out.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got time.
Let's see if we can find it. Here. Where's the, I don't see it. And again, I know you had all this set up.
I did
on
have
the
it all set up.
laptop, So
Yeah.
sorry for the little extra here.
Yeah,
Let's see, let's get out of that.
yeah, just close.
And you want to just do a new.
Yep.
Well, you probably need me to find where this is, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, DuckDB, and then
Database
we
connection, so DuckDB.
DuckDB,
Yep,
and then you need the path to our warehouse.db file.
yep. Let's go.
You know, you have to borrow your colleague's computer, and you're not quite sure where everything is. That's kind of what we're doing right now.
All right, so I will do that, and then
Perfect. Thank you.
you got it.
All right, so all we needed to do was pass in that path to our DuckDB file. We click Finish, and then we have a connection in dbeaver. This is probably impossible to read for you guys back there. So in our tester schema, we have tables, and we have our forecast table. So There we go.
Left side,
Okay.
no, sorry, left side.
So here we can preview our data. So we have our primary keys that we defined for the forecast table, start time, zip code, those come first. We have all of our other fields that we didn't have to even really do any work to get these. So Fivetran adds a couple columns to every table that we sync. Fivetran synced, timestamp that we wrote it, and also Fivetran deleted, which is gonna be false until you change it. So we're happy with how this looks. Now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do our deploy.
So nothing to Databricks yet.
Yes.
If you didn't like what you saw in that warehouse, you could come back,
Yep.
make your changes in the connector.py, test it again. No cost being incurred at all.
Yep.
So that makes it really nice. I think it's a very
Exactly.
handy feature.
Yep. So now we are going to run our deploy. So this is a simple command, and we have all this in our documentation, of course, but Kelly has built this awesome shell script. So Fivetran account name, destination name, Azure Databricks.
Yeah, and you have this is connected up to an API key within our Fivetran account that is associated with that MDS Databricks hands-on lab account name. So we have the API key sitting in the config.json or environmental file. But that's the three things you need. I need my account with the API key. I need a destination. Most of our customers have multiple destinations in their Fivetran account. And then CL, you get to name the connector whatever you want
Yes.
to. I don't know
Yep.
what you name
And in
it
this
to.
case, we've chosen to name it DAS Demo 0611.
See?
So when it deploys, it's telling us what it's doing. So it's going to send any .py files that are in your project directory. Any Python files will get sent. It's going to send a requirements.txt if it's been created, but our connector doesn't. If you're curious about Python libraries, we have most of the basic ones pre-installed, and when we deploy, we use piprex to compare your imports against our standard ones. And if there's any sort of delta, we make a requirements file that gets sent. And then we send the content of configuration.json. So that's important because I kind of glossed over this. This is where you would also send in any API keys, stuff that may be confidential. I also use it a lot for things that I might want to change without having to redeploy my code. In this case, my zip codes. So this has been deployed, and we get a nice hyperlink down at the bottom.
And yeah, you should be, if you just Alt, or
Yep.
not Alt, but
Yep.
Command
Head over
tab,
Chrome.
you should.
Escape out here, dashboard. All right, great. Okay, so we're gonna go and find our connector that we just made. Okay, so it's ready to sync. It doesn't kick off a sync automatically. You still have time to back out if you decide you don't want to do this. So I'm gonna kick off this initial sync. And so this is gonna take a couple minutes to run, even though it's not very much data, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So let's go back. I'm gonna look at a connector that is already done. Okay, so this is a similar connector. So let's just take a walk through some of the tabs, but first, if we hover over, looks like about half of you aren't familiar with Fivetran. We zoom in a little bit. So this sync started at 9:09:34, ended at 9:11, so 1.5 minutes. What is it doing in that time? It's not very much data. So extract time 10 seconds, process time 4 seconds, load time 12 seconds, so that's 26 seconds. The other minute and change is us spinning up a container in our Google Cloud platform. So we create a container, we install any packages that you need, then we run your code. The rest of the data processing time is what's mostly determined by your code. So this is sort of magnified when we have a small amount of data, but if you're loading a large amount of data that runs for 10 minutes, it's going to be a minute to spin up the container and then 10 minutes of processing your code.
And as a customer, Fivetran customer, I don't have to determine container size.
You don't.
Or anything like
Yeah,
that.
do
right?
all that for you,
Everything
yep.
you're describing is under the covers.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. So with Connector SDK, there's an extra tab up here. If you are a Fivetran user, you might recognize that this is not a normal tab. So you can see any of the logging statements that you've added to your code. So we have all of our info level and warning level logs here. And these are here in your UI for 7 days. If you use the Fivetran platform connector, you can write it to your logs go into your data warehouse. Keep them for as long as you want. We have our schema tab, which acts like other Fivetran connectors. Here, if you decide you don't want some of these columns, you can uncheck it. It'll walk you through a dialog for how do you want to handle stuff that's already been written. And then usage, and finally setup, which I mentioned a little earlier. Anything that's in your configuration file gets uploaded to Fivetran, and you can change it later without redeploying. This is where you do it. So if I click Edit Connection, I can go in. I can't see this. This is why API keys, good place to put them. You can't see them, but you can overwrite them. So if you have an API key, someone leaves the company, you need to cycle it out, you can replace that in the UI. You don't need to redeploy your connector.
So going back to that diagram CL, we had that one box that, you know, as a customer, I'm responsible to code up. And then you have those other 2/3. You're really in the 2/3 right now.
Exactly,
right?
yep.
Like you're not having to code up all this orchestration. And I think on that setup, I mean, that looked to me like classic Fivetran. Like I can say I want a minute incremental sync, polling time,
Yep.
I want 5, 15, whatever that is. This is,
Exactly.
if you know Fivetran, this looks identical to really any connector out there. So I can go a minute up to 24 hours on my sync frequency.
Yep, exactly. So I mentioned earlier our documentation. We have a setup guide, which is sort of a step-by-step how to set up your first connector, virtual environment, pip install, etc. In here are linked our GitHub repo. So we have quick start examples, which are, and we're getting close to the end. We have quick start examples, which are sort of, this is where your hello world is. Basic Fivetran connector SDK 101. We have our weather by zip code example, which is what we just walked through. So the code is in here for these quick start examples. We have common patterns. How do I authenticate based on different patterns that the API uses? API key, HTTP basic, OAuth. So, and then finally we have the source examples work directory, which is fully functional connector SDK connections for sources that Fivetran doesn't currently support. So for these, you're probably going to need an account for whatever source you're trying to replicate. So at this point,
I was just going to ask you on this because I'm a big fan of this example repo. But my friend Tim, who I talked about earlier, who wanted the Java version, he said, because I said, Tim, jump out there to Claude. Claude will help you on this. There's a lot of ways to do this. I've got model assistance. I've got this example repo, code it from scratch. What has worked best for you as you've been building the 40 to 50?
So what's been working really great lately is I'm a fan of Claude.
Okay.
I like Claude. ChatGPT also great. Cursor IDE does a pretty good job as well. So we actually have a directory AI and connector SDK where we have like a Claude instructions file, so you can feed Claude. These are the important things to think about. They're great for like a first draft, and then sometimes I have to iterate if there's some nuance that it didn't quite get. But the use of AI has greatly speed up the time to create these connectors. So we actually have a blog post about how to create a connector in under an hour using Claude. So that is out there as well.
Now I'll show you how to basically clone our repo, all those examples, ingest them into Claude to become really that foundational knowledge base, and it just becomes super easy. Hey Claude, build me this type of connector.
Yes.
There's a lot of different ways to do it though.
All right. So at this point, our DAS demo, June 11th, is done, and it ran in 2 minutes, 18 seconds, extract time 30 seconds, process 11, load time 15. It processed about 20 zip codes, so more than our debug. So I'm going to hand it over to Kelly. He's going to show you how everything works in Databricks.
First of all, are there any questions on what CL took you through here? Because this is, everybody who sees it goes, oh wow, there's a better way of doing custom connectors now. Any questions on this piece? Yes?
Can you talk really quick about the schema change?
Sure. Yeah. So the schema change for connector SDK works in much the same way as schema change for any other Fivetran connector. So our data type inference, we try to pick the most specific type that will losslessly accept the data type that you're trying to write. So the first time you send a column from the API and it's an integer, we make the type an integer. But then the next time maybe it becomes a float. We'll change it to a float in Databricks. Depending on the destination, they allow and don't allow different types of changes, but we try to, what we usually end up doing under the hood is I believe we create a copy of the table, do a cast operator, put all the new data into that table, do a rename. So that's sort of how we take care of it in general.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, there's going to be a quarantine or error?
No, you shouldn't, it should happen without you knowing that it happened for the most part, yeah.
Question here?
So for this demo, is there a way to see like the total cost incurred just for like this?
So For usage, usage isn't here yet for this example because I think it updates like hourly or something, but
And
yeah.
so for all your initial syncs with Fivetran across all of our connectors, including anything custom you build, the initial historical sync, whatever size that thing is free, no charge at all. And then you get 14 days of incrementals for free. During, I think right around day 7 or so, you'll start seeing in that usage, oh, here's what my incrementals are. You'll start getting an idea of what your consumption pattern would be for that connector. So yeah, it's a little bit early on this one since you just created it, but really,
Yeah.
really good question. You would get that after a few days. You'd be able to see kind of what it would be.
And is that in dollars and cents or is that in MAR?
Well, I wasn't going to bring up all the details around it, but basically we charge for updates to a row. If a row updates one time during the course of a month, that's a consumption event for us. It could change another 100 times or 1,000 times, doesn't matter. We call it monthly active rows MAR.
Right.
But yeah, you'll
Yeah.
see all of the details in there. So yes, total
Yeah.
MAR, free MAR.
Yeah, this is the other connector. So yeah, so and since we're, yeah, since it all depends on how the primary keys are defined, basically. Yeah, what gets considered a MAR.
Other questions on connector SDK? All right, let's see.
A few more minutes.
Oh,
Yep.
yes.
Things needed to set up the account API key, the destination, and what was the third one?
Just the connector name. You just name the connector. Yeah, and on a regular deploy, I put a little bit of scripting around that one just to make it easy so we can default. On a regular deploy command, CL, if
Yeah,
a little
scroll
bit
down to the
further.
debug. Yeah, so deploy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep. So this is a standard deploy command. Configuration, so a little bit about configuration.json. It's required the first time. After that, you can deploy without the configuration file if you don't need to make any changes. But the first time you deploy, you are going to want to send the configuration. So other than that, you need your Fivetran API key, which comes out of your Fivetran dashboard, your destination name, an already existing destination. We're not going to create it as part of this process. So it has to already exist in Fivetran. And then the name of your brand new Fivetran connection, which is going to be the name of the schema in Databricks.
Other questions? I know we got, I think, 3 minutes, Raman, left. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, go ahead.
This might be a little off base, but you mentioned earlier that if you're catching changes you've done to enable CDC yourself, I'm just curious where you're catching them from. Like, consider a relational database system. Are you reading the active transaction log?
So that's a great question. So most of our use cases initially were APIs where they're giving you, like, there's a update timestamp you can pass to the API. For relational databases, as of now, we're still based on sort of relying on an audit column in the table and doing select statements. Yeah.
And we have a tremendous number of database connectors out of the box as well. There could be use cases, though, where you'd want to use a connector SDK. Good question. Anybody else? I know we got a couple of minutes. I did want to, and I'll try to do this super quick. I know we got 2 minutes, and then they are getting us out of here. Let me go out just real quick, because I did at least want to show you the data here as it landed in Databricks. What was it called, CL?
DAIS underscore
Everything
demo.
Okay, everything lands in a Unity catalog. Was it?
DAIS underscore demo underscore.
DAIS. I will just scroll down instead of
Underscore
right there,
demo.
right?
Yep, that's it.
That's it. There's your 2 tables: forecast, zip code. And if I take a little sample data view there in Databricks Data Intelligent Platform, I got that. I was going to read, so I'm a big fan of Databricks apps. Has anybody built a Databricks app yet? Oh, they're awesome. You gotta, so you got 5 different flavors in Databricks to use. Let me actually, we'll do this just real quick. Last thing here, it's a little bit hidden. It's under compute. If you go up here to apps, I'm not going to create a brand new one. You got 5 different options. I got Streamlit, Shiny, Gradio. All this is there for you. We built a cool little weather app for our restaurateurs in the audience called WeatherMind. And you can build this in Cursor, VS Code, deploy it with Databricks. Databricks gives you a really nice little sync command up there and then a deploy command. We've already got this one deployed. I'm not going to go ahead and change to the data set that you have because we just don't have time. But this will give you an idea. This is a Streamlit application hosted in Databricks. I've got security governance of Databricks around this thing. And see, what is it? Oh, I happen to live in Cyprus. I know for a fact it is raining cats and dogs, pots and pans, whatever you call it in your world, Cypress delivery today. I'm not going out.
The
Forget
best
about it.
patio location is my hometown of Gaylord, Michigan.
There you go. You could got sunshine probably.
Hometown of Claude Shannon.
So that's kind of fun. And then if you're not using Databricks apps to make Databricks AI calls as well, we've got like I think 3 or 4 little micro Gen AI apps that are going out in this case to Claude 3.7. Databricks has dropped 4.0 into Databricks as well. That's all available. Last thing I want to point you to, we really appreciate everybody. We have, if you want to get hands-on with this yourself, this QR code right there, click that and you can join us for a virtual hands-on lab to try out the connector SDK. CL, I don't know if you'll be hosting that or I'll be on it, but there'll be somebody from Fivetran that will take you through if we're not there.
It'll be fire.
It'll be fun, yeah. I'll leave that up there. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you
Thanks,
joining
everyone.
us today. Thank you so much. Thank you, CL.